There are moments in a believer's life when darkness seems to have the upper hand, when the schemes of the wicked appear to prosper, and the pure in heart are mocked for trusting in what they cannot see. Yet, those who walk with God understand that what seems to be the end is often the turning of the tide. For when evil rises against the righteous, heaven does not remain silent. The unseen hand of God begins to move, turning curses into blessings and making every deceit of the enemy recoil upon its maker. This is the mystery of divine reversal, the quiet but unstoppable work of God, who ensures that no weapon formed against his chosen shall prosper. In every age, the faithful have faced the hostility of those who dwell in spiritual blindness. They have been accused, betrayed, and attacked through means both human and unseen. But the story of God's people has never been one of defeat. It has always been one of endurance and eventual triumph. The forces of darkness, though cunning and cruel, are bound by limits they cannot cross. Their power is borrowed, their authority permitted only for a season. And when that season ends, their own malice turns inward, like a sword that finds the heart of the one who wields it. When a man or woman is chosen by God, they become the object of both divine favor and demonic fury. The chosen are tested not to destroy them, but to reveal the strength that grace has placed within them. Their suffering refines them, their waiting prepares them. What seems like witchcraft working against them is often the crucible through which their destiny is forged. For God does not merely protect his children, he vindicates them. He allows the storm to gather, only to speak a single word and make it scatter. Every dark spell, every false word, every hidden plot against God's chosen eventually collapses under the weight of his justice. The reversal has begun, not through human vengeance, but through divine order being restored. Evil, by its very nature, carries the seed of its own ruin. It overreaches, blinds itself with pride, and falls into the trap it built for another. What was meant to destroy becomes the instrument of revelation. Through this, God displays his sovereignty not only over the righteous, but over the schemes of the wicked themselves. And so, to the chosen who have felt the sting of betrayal, the cold of isolation, or the unseen hand of evil pressing against them, take heart. The silence of God is not his absence, it is his preparation. The delay of justice is not denial, but timing. The reversal is already in motion, quiet but certain. For every curse pronounced, there is a counter-decree written in heaven. Every whisper of darkness is answered by the voice that spoke light into existence. The chosen are never forsaken, and every weapon aimed against them shall return to its sender, carrying the proof that God defends his own. The story of divine reversal is not merely a tale of poetic justice, it is a profound revelation of how God governs the unseen order of the world. Evil, no matter how sophisticated or secretive, cannot sustain itself against the truth. There is a point at which the weight of deceit begins to crush its maker, when the very energy of malice begins to recoil. It is not a sudden spectacle, but a gradual unfolding, a quiet turning of the tide, where what was once a weapon of darkness becomes an instrument of revelation. God does not need to act with haste. His justice is woven into the fabric of creation itself. The laws that govern the universe ensure that what is sown must also be reaped. When wickedness is sown in arrogance, it is only a matter of time before it bears the fruit of ruin. The divine reversal begins invisibly, in places unseen by human eyes. What appears as silence is often God's patient orchestration of balance. Those who act in deceit may believe they have gained ground, that their schemes have taken root, that their power is secure. Yet all along, they are walking toward their undoing. The higher they climb through corruption, the deeper they fall when truth exposes them. The justice of God does not need thunder or spectacle. It often arrives through ordinary means, through the unraveling of pride, through the simple collapse of falsehood under its own weight. When evil reaches its fullest expression, it becomes too heavy to sustain itself. This is why the chosen must never despair when they see evil prospering. God allows wickedness to flourish for a season so that it may reveal its full nature and condemn itself. In this, divine patience is not weakness, but wisdom. The same fire that purifies gold also consumes the chaff. It does not discriminate between them until the moment of testing arrives. Those who walk in truth may feel the heat of this process, yet they are not consumed. They emerge refined, while the works of darkness are reduced to ashes. The reversal does not happen because the righteous fight back. It happens because righteousness itself cannot be defeated. Truth is eternal, while lies must eventually exhaust themselves. When God reverses the flow of evil, the transformation is complete. What was meant to destroy becomes the very reason for vindication. Every false accusation, every plot, every deceitful action turns inward upon the one who conceived it. It is not human revenge but divine correction, a restoring of moral gravity. The balance of the world is real and unbreakable because it rests upon the unchanging character of God. The wicked may think themselves free from consequence, but their own hands prepare their downfall. In the end, it is not the righteous who prove themselves victorious, but the justice of God that stands unchallenged, turning every act of evil into testimony that his order prevails, and that no darkness can overturn what he has decreed. There is a profound and unchanging law that governs all things unseen. Evil cannot sustain itself when confronted by the purity of divine truth. Witchcraft, deceit, manipulation, and every form of dark intention thrive only in the absence of light. Once exposed to the presence of truth, their structure collapses, their strength dissolves, and their influence turns inward. When those who serve darkness attempt to harm what God has sanctified, they unknowingly set in motion their own undoing. The power of evil is parasitic. It feeds on fear, secrecy, and illusion. The moment it encounters unwavering faith and divine authority, it begins to consume itself. Every spell, curse, or whispered deception carries a return path built into its nature. It cannot reach where God's protection stands guard. When deceit moves against the chosen, it appears strong because it operates in silence and shadow. Yet its seeming success is temporary. Truth has its own rhythm, patient and deliberate, waiting for the appointed hour to reveal what has been hidden. The chosen may feel the weight of unseen warfare, the pressure of confusion, or the sting of false accusation, but these are not signs of defeat. They are signals that the confrontation between light and darkness has begun. Once the truth begins to rise, no amount of manipulation can hold its course. The falsehoods that seemed unshakable begin to crumble under the simplest touch of divine reality. The power that once appeared to be working against the chosen becomes the very evidence of God's dominion over all creation. Witchcraft, whether literal or symbolic, is the attempt to control what belongs to God. It seeks to twist outcomes, to bend will, to obscure clarity. But the chosen cannot be overtaken by such forces because they are aligned with a higher order. The spirit of truth within them exposes deception, not through confrontation, but through revelation. The darkness loses its hold not because it is resisted by human strength, but because it is overwhelmed by divine presence. Every hidden plot, every false intention, begins to collapse under the weight of its own impurity. What was sent to destroy becomes the means. through which God's sovereignty is displayed. The energy of evil does not vanish. It is redirected, turned upon its source, forced to bear the consequence of its rebellion. There is a strange and holy justice in how God allows this reversal to unfold. He does not need to strike back, for truth itself carries judgment within it. When deception meets truth, it cannot coexist, one must fall. And since truth is eternal, deception always ends in ruin. Those who trust in the light need not retaliate, for the divine order ensures that all false power collapses when its time is complete. The backfiring of witchcraft is not coincidence. It is the reflection of God's unbreakable law, where every unclean intention, once unleashed, must return to its origin, bearing the weight of its defiance against the light that never fails. There are seasons in a believer's life when the silence of God feels heavier than any storm. The prayers seem unanswered, the heavens unmoved, and the waiting endless. Yet this silence is not absence. It is preparation. When God appears quiet, it is because he is crafting something greater than immediate relief. He is aligning events, people, and circumstances in ways that cannot yet be seen. The chosen often mistake delay for neglect, but divine timing is never careless. The silence of God is the stillness before the dawn, the pause before revelation, the hidden breath before victory. It is in this silence that faith is proven, because trusting God without evidence is the truest form of worship. Every great movement of God begins in the quiet. Noah built an ark in silence before the first drop of rain fell. Joseph sat in prison before his dream became reality. Christ himself was silent before Pilate, not out of fear, but because the moment of victory had not yet arrived. Silence does not mean inactivity. It is the sound of heaven working beneath the surface. What looks like divine stillness is often the orchestration of 1,000 unseen details moving toward fulfillment. The chosen are trained in this silence so that when the noise of life returns, they are no longer swayed by it. They learn to find strength in stillness and to trust that God's pace is perfect even when it feels slow. When trials intensify and answers remain distant, the chosen are being taught the rarest form of faith, the kind that endures without explanation. This faith does not demand signs, it clings to the nature of God rather than the evidence of his actions. The silence refines the heart, stripping away dependency on emotion and replacing it with conviction. It teaches that faith is not built on what we feel, but on what we know to be true. The quiet seasons force the chosen to remember what God has already spoken and to trust that his promises do not expire. In this training, God builds a resilience that cannot be shaken by circumstance or delayed answers. The longer the silence, the deeper the work. God uses this sacred stillness to separate the impatient from the faithful, the impulsive from the enduring. It is in these pauses that pride is dismantled and humility is born. The chosen learn that not all progress is visible and that not every battle requires their participation. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is to remain still while heaven moves unseen. This stillness is not resignation, but confidence that the hand of God is never idle. He withholds speech so that the chosen may develop the ability to hear in new ways, to sense his direction through peace, to discern his presence in absence, to walk forward with trust instead of sight. It is through this divine silence that strength matures, patience deepens, and unseen victories begin to take form long before they are revealed to the world. There is a divine principle woven through the story of every believer. What is meant for harm becomes the very evidence of God's protection. The world may speak curses, the envious may plot in shadows, and unseen forces may rise in opposition. Yet none of these can overturn what God has decreed. Every curse, every false word, every act of hostility carries within it a limit placed by divine authority. It cannot pass beyond the boundary that God has set. What appears to be an attack often becomes the soil in which his favor grows. For the very forces that seek to harm the chosen are used to reveal the depth of his guardianship. The righteous are not immune to affliction, but they are surrounded by a protection that turns harm into harvest and danger into demonstration. When the chosen walk through seasons of adversity, they may not see the invisible shields that guard their path, but heaven's defenses are constant. God does not always remove the weapon. Sometimes he renders it powerless. The curse may be spoken, but it meets resistance the moment it approaches the one covered by divine covenant. The words dissolve, the plans unravel, the energy of malice loses its direction and begins to turn upon itself. In this way, every attempt against the righteous becomes a testimony, not of the strength of the enemy, but of the steadfastness of the defender. The unseen protection of God is not fragile, it is ancient, unbreakable, and rooted in his unchanging nature. The beauty of divine defense lies not in preventing conflict, but in transforming it. The arrows that fly toward the chosen are often the same arrows that confirm their calling. God allows confrontation so that his power may be revealed, not through avoidance, but through victory. The curse that was sent to weaken becomes the very circumstance through which faith is strengthened. The pain that was meant to silence becomes the reason to speak with greater conviction. Each failed attack adds another layer to the testimony of divine faithfulness. What was sent as a weapon returns as proof that God's protection is not passive but alive, active, and responsive to the cries of his people. Those who are rooted in faith come to recognize that divine protection is not the absence of battle, but the assurance of survival. It is the confidence that no force, however fierce, can outmaneuver the will of God. The chosen are not defined by what they endure, but by how they emerge from it. Untouched in spirit, refined in strength, and marked by the evidence of divine favor, every curse loses its meaning when it meets the authority of heaven. For the light that surrounds the righteous cannot be penetrated by darkness. What was designed to destroy them becomes the proof of who they are, revealing that no voice of malice, no weapon of deceit, and no power of darkness can undo the word that God has spoken over his own.